Hi, everybody. Salma Manzur with 12 Rivers Realty here with
Sonny Bara with the Bara team at Keller Williams.
That's right. And today we're going to talk about how we got started in investing. We've shared before that we were both in the business for several years before we started getting our feet wet in real estate investing. I know I didn't buy my house until 7 to 14? 7 years. 7 years into real estate. I didn't buy my first home. Okay.
Which is still an investment.
It's still an investment, but I did sell it because my entryway into investing was a condo because it was what I could afford where I wanted to live at the time. I was fortunate enough that I could still afford where I wanted to live. And I bought in an HOA. And a year later, that HOA went up, which means my monthly went up. I personally freaked out. I didn't like that risk. And I said, you know what? Thankfully, I'm in real estate. So even selling a year later, not at a high appreciation, I get to save some of that commission money for myself. So being in the business had a few perks. And then I very quickly, in my 8th year in real estate, bought my first single family home. Okay, so that was in 2005.
By the way, I tell my clients all the time, never invest in condos because of special assessments. It's tough. That's, if you're going to invest in anything, it'd be single family residential and not a condo.
Look, if you can get into anything and a condo is the only thing that you can afford, buy it. Okay, we need you to buy real property.
Right.
However, if you can and you have a choice, maybe don't get into something where you don't have full control, i.e. an HOA with other homeowners. So it's been 10 years since I've had that bungalow. I only lived in it for 5 of those 10 years. And I've since bought and sold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more properties. And I personally own 6 stores today. Okay.
Same. Yeah, I think we started it. Same. We started it 2010. That'd be 2020 was my oh my gosh, I was in the business for almost 20 years before I bought my first one. So our first investment property was 2020. Investment property, but my first home, and Aaron and I started in real estate together in 2001, and we bought our first home in 2004, which again is my first investment property because every home's an investment.
Right. Okay. So I bought my first home that I lived in, and then I bought my first investment property, and the first investment property that I bought was a new condo again. I went from a single family bungalow in Hyde Park, and I thought, I'm tired of this old stuff. I want something new. And I wanted to move to the trendy east side. So I ended up putting 15% down and thinking I was going to move into it. By the end of this whole story, by the time the condo was finished, which was into the pandemic a year and a half later, that property had appreciated. Again, I only put 15% down. I ended up not moving into it because of personal reasons. My dog was getting older, elevator. It was not going to be a good fit for us at the time.
I think you jumped ahead too quickly because I think we just need to go ahead and talk about the very first one you purchased. And can we talk about like what you paid for it and what you sold it for in that time frame?
In that 1 year, that one condo? I paid $300,000 for it, and I sold it for $320,000.
Cool. Yeah, in 1 year.
In 1 year.
And so I don't have my calculator in my head, but that's pretty decent appreciation.
But think about $300,000 minus 7. What's
so that would be 21,000. So 21,000.
Okay.
So and technically, if you did that in real life without being a realtor, you would have been about $11,000 upside down in 1 year.
Okay, but because I got to keep some of that, and remember, I put 15% down, and I paid on that. So
correct. You have some mortgage equity, but not much.
Right.
But yes, if you're typically buying a home 1 year and selling it later, you're not going to get a return, right? I mean, that's
correct. But I would have known, and we've talked about this before, I would have known if I would have had to pay money when I sold that property. I certainly didn't.
Correct.
In fact, I made a little bit, and I turned around and put it into that next house because I wouldn't have been able to do it any other way. Right. So
that's another question I have for you. So what could you have collected in rent at that time, and what was your mortgage payment on that home? Now it's a long time ago.
Yeah, no, but my mortgage payment was roughly around $2,400, and that included the HOA But that's why I sold it, because the HOA went up a bunch.
Special assessment.
And then it was going to be upside down, maybe $300. But at the time, I didn't have the money to be upside down $300 and then pay another mortgage. You know, I was young in my career and, you know, spending money on dumb stuff and whatever, right? You live and you learn.
Yep.
And that's another thing. It's like, you live and you learn, because now that I see, looking back on how good this works and how the money can really grow, then I do think twice about spending frivolously on things, because I'd rather spend it on real estate. And I don't mean I'm living poorly over here and not enjoying life. I am, but it is a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, it's interesting. Okay.
It is. So, but listen, my mortgage payments, everybody knows my mortgage payments are always as high as I'm uncomfortable with, because I know that's just less money I'm going to be spending. I'm always going to make my mortgage payment. Right.
I know, but Sonny, you live differently. You live with a little bit more risk. A lot of people don't. That's important to acknowledge.
For sure.
And I live less riskly than you, and we're still both doing real estate and risking money here and making money. I started investing, and I only put 15% down on a brand new condo. How did you buy your first investment?
We put 3.5% down on a $165,000 home that Erin was like losing her mind about going this far South Austin, and we only lived in that home like 3 years. We bought it for $165 and sold it for like $220. It was the return on investment there was 70. So let's go 70,000 into 160. I mean, that was almost a 50% return in 3 years.
But you sold that house and you bought your next house.
Correct. Yeah, because we wanted Rainey to go to Baranoff Elementary. And so that home that we put 3.5% down, off the top of my head, I'm just use 4 for a round number. That means we put $6,500 down on that home, and it returned us returned to $60,000. So if we put $6,000 down, we got 1,000% return on our investment in 3 years. That would be nowhere else in the world you could get that.
Right.
And that was my very first home that I lived in. And then we actually didn't even put any money down, I don't think, on our Whiskey River home. We paid the highest price per square foot ever paid in Shady Hollow. And 10 years later, we sold it for one of the highest price per square foots.
Right. So that happens a lot in real estate.
In 10 years.
Like,
we put nothing down and made hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
I think we had to put 3.5% down. So 3.5% down on that $220,000 Shady Hollow home, and we sold it for $440,000 10 years later, and only put 3.5% down.
Right.
There's no other investment we could have made that would return that kind of money.
Right.
So those are our first two primary homes. Or again, I still say those are investment homes, because any home you purchase is an investment. And if you talk about the Austin area, I think we were talking about a stat earlier where National Association of Realtors came out and they said that over the past 42 years, the national average of home appreciation has been 5%. And in Austin, what I say South Austin, it's been anywhere between 6 and 7%. And how much are you saying it was more in this area?
In Central Austin, I mean, if you're talking about like Ben White to 183, it was historically 7 to 12% appreciation year to year, 7 to 10%. So a lot more than the national average.
What allowed Erin and I to grow from 0 investment homes to 5 was our switch in companies. And so what we did is within the first year of moving over to our new company, we purchased an investment home. And at that time, we only had to put 20% down on a $200,000 home, which was $40,000. Awesome. By the end of the year, there was another opportunity, because I'm friends with a lot of builder representatives in the area. A lot of my friends are in management and for big, huge national builders. And so they presented me a couple of opportunities. So by the time we purchased our first one, which is a to-be built, by the time it was ready to be built, it was almost doubled in value. And then, so Erin and I are like, okay, cool. We just had a good year, and we got to keep more of what we were earning because we were at a new company. And then we said, cool, we'll buy another one. We literally bought another one in the same neighborhood. That one took probably another 6 months to build. And by the time that one was ready, that home would probably appreciated by 50%. Okay. So all of a sudden we went from making 100% on one home in a year to 50% on another home. But by the way, the only thing we'd left at that point in time was $5,000 on each one of these homes. And weren't even closing on them yet. We weren't even closing on them yet. And all of a sudden we had hundreds of thousands of dollars extra that we didn't have, only because I left a $5,000 check for one address and a $5,000 check for another address. So now let's fast forward 1 year after that. So now we're starting at
1 year after buying the second home.
Yep. So now we're starting on this is the starting of the third year. And starting with the third year, the market was still pretty decent. And so we're like, okay, well, we don't have a lot of money right now, even though we were making a lot, but we were also spending a lot because I'm like you, I like to spend money.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, screw it. Let's go ahead and do a cash out refi on our first investment property that had already doubled in value to buy our third investment property. And so we're able to, actually, as a matter of fact, I think we're able to cash out refi enough to buy 2 investment properties in the same neighborhood. So now we have 2 in one neighborhood, we have 2 in another neighborhood. By the time those were complete, they'd each appreciated at least 30 to 40% in a year.
Okay, so just to break it down for people, you were trucking along in your real estate career. You finally made it to where you're like, I have done enough business that I have a little bit of money saved. One way or another, you got that money. And you invested in one house.
Correct.
A little bit later, you're like, I'm doing so well in real estate. We were all doing so well in real estate that you took a little bit of more money and you bought a second one.
Correct.
By the time that second one was built and rented and everything, it was time to refinance the first one that got you enough money. You got enough money after. So you did have to come out of pocket for the first 2.
Yeah, because I had come about 20% on each one.
On each one. Okay. So then the first one appreciated enough that you took out money from that one to buy your next 2.
The third and the fourth.
Right.
The third and the fourth.
Right.
And it could have been enough to buy the third one and almost enough to buy the fourth, and we just covered the difference.
Okay. But whatever the case might be, you put down money on 2 homes within a year.
Yes.
Then you closed on them. By the time you closed on them, had it rented, you took one that then helped you buy 2 more.
That's right.
Okay.
And then we went to this. So then we could go back to our second investment property, take money out of that one, which is now we're starting in our 4th year now.
Yeah.
So now we're able to take money out. So that would be 1, 2. We're in the middle of the 3rd year of buying homes. So we're able to take money out of the second home, our second investment home, to buy our 5th one. Investment home.
And why didn't you take enough money to buy 2 more homes?
I should have. I think Aaron and I spent it.
Okay. Either you spent it or the equity wasn't there, or it was, but then you're like, what's going to happen next year?
Correct.
Maybe we shouldn't risk it.
Yeah, because by the way, I'm still upside, right? So now I'm upside down mortgage versus rent on my first one.
Correct.
And I was still upside down mortgage versus rent on my second one.
Correct. So that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Clear as day here. Let me know if you're understanding that you took a little bit of your saved money to buy one house. Starts to get built because of the market we're in, because of the business we're in. You had an opportunity to buy a second one. You buy it. Then in year 2, you take money from your first one. It was so good back then. That's the pandemic that you took money from the first one that grew and grew, and you bought 3 and 4. More time went by, you went and you took money from the second one to buy number 5. What I'm saying is, progressively in those 3 years, the market did decline a little bit.
For sure.
So chances are that as it declined, you were maybe able to take less from your investment to buy other investments because prices changed and things got higher.
That's right.
So, and now you're telling me that at the end of all of this, after it shook out with financing and taking money in and out of places, your mortgages went up because mortgages went up when you take that equity out. And now you're in a position where your mortgages are a little bit higher than your rents.
Correct.
So you are telling me that now, not all of them cash flow, and when you shake all the math, you're about $3,000 short a month.
Yeah, and today in real lifetime, yes, my rents are, I collect $3,000 less in rents than what my mortgage payments are.
Right. That's a lot. $3,000 a month is a lot to be spending.
And you have to have the means to do it, right?
Right.
Sometimes I don't have the means, but I'll figure a way to do it.
Right. Well, there's a will, there's a way, and sometimes you don't. And what we're trying to tell you, and there's another episode coming about this, is about like the risk and the pain. Usually is worth it. Yep. It really, really is. And if you get yourself in a pickle, there are steps that you can take to get yourself out of a pickle where you're still gaining more than you're losing. So there's lots of ways. We're going to have another episode about that. But that's how your money grew.
Yeah, the point of the story is that I was able to start with a little amount of money, and within 3.5 to 4 years later, it literally was doing this. $425,000 I made in just a few years, and I only put a little bit of money down.
Right.
And so I don't care if at this point in time I was upside down about $600 a month, in mortgage payments. But now that I'm $3,000, it doesn't matter because the value of all of my real estate right now probably appreciates roughly $150,000 to $175,000 annually for me just sitting here having a conversation with you. And right now, for the past 12 or 18 months, it's just been flat and probably even upside down a little, but that's okay because I acquired them at such a smaller value and I leveraged this small amount of money to buy the large amount of money. Who cares if it goes back a little bit? Because I only spent this much. I spent this small amount of money down here. Who cares if it goes down a little here, right? It doesn't bother me. And so, and the $3,000 I'm paying every month is not going to last forever. If it lasts a year, if it lasts 2 years, that's only going to be $36,000, $72,000. But I just said that all my real estate right now is appreciating at $150,000 to $175,000 a year. So as long as I have the means to pay that $36,000 a year until rents catch up with mortgage, then I'm not worried about it.
Right. And what he means by along his means is his comfort, right? So if he's short but he's comfortable working harder to sell 3 more houses so that he can cover his expenses, then that's his means, right? I say that we're going to leave it for another episode, but things can happen just like you can lose your job, but nothing ever happens all at once.
I lost my job for the last 3 months. I really haven't made much money at all. In real estate, because people don't understand. This is what drives me crazy, is real estate's only slow because people don't understand the value of it. If they really understood the value of it, they wouldn't care what the interest rate was at the time. They wouldn't care what the price of the home was at the time. They would just understand leveraging money. You would be able to put a small amount of money to buy a large amount of money that's going to give you your interest / appreciation, whatever you want to call it. You would be doing it as fast as you can.
Right.
Talk to me about your journey to all these doors that you have worth millions of dollars.
So the thing is that, like, again, investing can be started at any moment when you're ready, and it can come in different forms. So you had a level of expertise and a level of experience and a level of money when you started investing, and you kind of went through university and then dove in, so to speak, right? You'd already helped millions of other people do this. You were a lender before you sold real estate.
I actually foreclosed on people. I was opposite of that. I was a forecloser.
Right. So you knew how it all worked.
Correct.
Me, on the other hand, Sonny, I'll be honest with you. I started investing because it was the cool thing to do. Like, I mirror what others do. You know what I mean? Like, if you go conquer the world, I'll go copy you. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, and that's all it takes. And that's why we're also here, because we want to show people how easy it is so that you can mimic us and get there, because, this isn't just like running a marathon and then you finish and then you get out of shape. Like, this is something that will continue to give you back. It's a very, very good positive return. So to answer your question, I bought a house because I knew that I just needed to get one foot into that door, because I knew I needed to have a place to live. And I knew that I was always going to pay for a place to live. So I knew eventually I would be a homeowner. Like that 1 + 1 is 2. That's easy. What I was starting to learn in my algebraic journey here is that in real estate, 1 + 1 can equal 5.
Right.
Right.
Way better math.
Right. And so again, I bought that first investment. I bought my condo, realized it was better to buy a single family, bought the single family. Opportunity came up to buy an investment, and it was a condo in an HOA, but I bought it because I knew it was in a trendy part of town. Like I said, I thought I was going to move into it. So I thought I was getting something new, something in the trendy part of town. I thought it was going to be fun, single, whatever. Like I said, it didn't add up for me, and it didn't make sense in the end, after 1.5 years of that project being built for me to move into it. And I was fortunate enough that it was in a trending part of town. And so I put somebody in it and I leased it, and I leased it quickly, and I leased it for what my mortgage was. I think I was $200.
So that's truly your first investment property.
That's truly,
then.
yeah,
Okay,
that was truly my first investment property. And so again, I got a little bit lucky because I only put 15% down. So that brought the mortgage up a little bit. And then the HOA. So I was about $200 short.
Okay. And you had the means at that time to offset the difference.
I was, because again, this is at the beginning when the Austin market was taking off. So
Yeah.
business was so good, it didn't matter. Like $200, what? I spent that in an Uber
Yeah.
in one night. You know what I mean? That made me cool my jets a little bit
Yeah.
because again, I was doing good in business. So it was easy for me to not have, and again, I was starting to learn the math that like $200 a month, what's that $2,400 in a year
right.
when I know that I'm going to be appreciating
5%, or actually
Right.
you said 7% to something in that area, right? So
Right.
7% or whatever that number was.
Right, and then we all know what happened. I closed in that in 2019, and we know what happened in 2020, 2021, right? So it really, really, really skyrocketed, and the price went up, and I really got a lot of appreciation, and I had a renter in there. And then, because I'm in real estate, a client called wanting to sell their house, and I went for the listing appointment so that I could prepare to list it. And in that conversation, 1 + 1 = 2, and they ended up wanting to sell to me directly. Okay, so I bought that as my primary again, only putting 15% down, and kept my bungalow in Hyde Park, which is a beautiful little bungalow where anybody would love to rent it.
For sure.
So automatically, within a year and a half, I all of a sudden had 2 investment properties, okay? At that time is when I had talked to you. I moved companies. It just so happens that the company I work with now is full of geniuses that are entrepreneurial business owners that buy real estate. They don't just buy and sell real estate. Like, so the office building that they office of is theirs. They own the dirt. They understood things immediately. They started spreading the word, and now here we are spreading it further, right?
Right.
But again, I was able to see examples of how it worked, and I'm no idiot. 1 + 1 can equal 5.
That's right.
If
For
1
sure.
+ 1 can equal 5, why would you continue at 1.1 = 2 when you have the means?
Right.
How do you get the means? We're going to break it down to you. There's different ways of doing it. You did it with an investor. You put a bunch down. You did it later in life.
Yep.
I did it a little bit earlier with a little less means, and I figured it out, and you can too. That's what we're here to explain.
Yeah, and don't worry, I'm going to make Salma come back with the numbers on all these, basically telling us what that 15% was of these properties, so you can really see what that 15% returned her in a very short amount of time, because that 15% bought her this large number that probably doubled in value in a few years.
I mean, I can tell you something right now. 15, like that condo, let's just say it cost me $400,000, and I put 15% down.
So that would be $60,000.
Okay. $60,000 that I put
Yep.
down on that condo.
Yep.
Remember, I sold it. Do you remember what I got back when I sold it?
I can't remember, but I'm going to be still astonished by this number, because you put $60,000 down, you paid $400,000. Do you remember what you sell it for?
I sold it for $525.
Yeah, so it's 100. So you're 100, and how long did it take you? Like, how long did you own it?
I owned it for 3 years.
3 years. So
Always leased it.
That's right.
100% of the
leased.
time leased.
So plus mortgage equity. So you bought it for $400. You sold it for $125,000, and you put $60,000 down. You more than doubled your investment.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes the S&P 10 years to double any money you give the S&P. If you give the S&P $60,000, 10 years later it will be worth $120,000. You're able to give yourself in the form of real estate $60,000, and it returned 100% in 3 years.
Guess
so
what?
imagine if you would have held it for 10.
Well, let me just tell you what I did with that money. I bought another home that I rent that I improved. So I got a bunch of money from that condo to put in a single family home that continues to pay me to this day $500 a month.
That means you have too much equity in it, in my opinion.
Well, that's my safety net. Some people take more risks than others. But I have that money in there. I have $500 a month that it pays me. And I also put money in a startup. I put $20,000 in a startup 3 years ago. I haven't seen one dime. Like, I'm still waiting for that to return something. And I hope it will, and I think it will, and all that. But real estate's where it's at.
Right.
So that's what we're here to explain. You went from 1 property to 6.
Mm-hmm.
I went from 1 property to 6 doors.
Mm-hmm.
And we're closer to retirement than we were before.
Right.
that's how I started in investing. That's how you started in investing. That's the reason that brought us together and that we're here.
Yeah. So still be on the lookout for other episodes. On the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about risk, right? There's risk. There's still risk in real estate. We're also going to be talking about how you can leverage this money like Salma's doing to exponentially grow that wealth. So just be on the lookout. We'll be here hopefully weekly, and we'll see y'all next week.
Give us a follow. We're here on repeat.